truth about South Africa. It's about time for the world to know the truth about South Africa and of what's really going on. So I'm going to tell you. The world's view of South Africa is that Nelson Mandela was a freedom fighter, that after he was freed from prison, became the president of South Africa, and he saved the country, making us a perfect rainbow nation, living in harmony, love, and everybody being equal. Well, that is not the truth. At first, it might have been the truth, but it sure as hell ain't the case anymore. South Africa is now at the verge of a genocidal war. Or wait, maybe it's already at war. You decide for yourself after hearing the facts. You and the rest of the world are being lied to by the South African government. They're twisting the truth to suit them and fuel their plan to kill all whites in South Africa. In 1991, 27 years ago, apartheid was abolished. And in 1994, a new democratic government arose. And Nelson Mandela was elected the new president of South Africa. That means that Nelson Mandela, the ANC, and the black population have been ruling this country for the last 24 years. Now, bearing that in mind, and if you do a little bit of math for yourself about school-going children, that means no person under the age of 30 has any excuse for not having an equal opportunity and not having an education in this country. And to give you some figures, that is 31.8 million out of a population of 56.5 million that had an equal opportunity. That's almost 60% of this country. You can get those stats from sastats.gov.za. One of the first things President Mandela did as a president was to implement BEE, Black Employment Equity, or affirmative action, as you should know it. Now, according to Wikipedia, Black Economic Empowerment is a racially selective program launched by the South African government to redress the inequities of apartheid by giving certain previously disadvantaged groups, blacks, coloureds, Indians and Chinese of South Africa, certain economic privileges previously not available to them under the white rule. This is a form of affirmative action. Although race is the overriding factor, it includes measures such as employment preference, skills development, ownership, management, socio-economic development, and preferential procurement. So, employment preference has since 1994 been in favour of the blacks. Skills development has been in the favour of blacks. So the 40% that could not benefit through a school education could benefit through skills development. All apprenticeships went to blacks. Ownership. All companies have been bullied into giving 51% of their shareholding to blacks. If they did not want to comply, nobody did business with them, and they had to close down. This is the procurement part. Corporate companies have even been bullied to build clinics and schools to buy the favour of the government. This brings us to the things you hear and don't hear. The white population is only 4.4 million out of a total population of 56.5 million. That makes whites only 8% of the total population. Poverty under whites. Over 1 million whites live in poverty in South Africa. Now let that just sink in for a while. That means a quarter of all whites in South Africa live in poverty, and it is due to BEE.
This is Coronation Park a squatter camp in Krugersdorp, South Africa. Although impoverished blacks in the region far outnumber their white counterparts, this camp is one of a growing number of townships populated mostly by Afrikaners, white South Africans. In the 19 years since the fall of apartheid, more and more whites are coming face to face with poverty and social meltdown.
I'm sorry, it's racist. I'm not a racist, but the blacks comes first and then the whites. And even highly qualified whites don't even get a position in South Africa.
A controversial affirmative action policy sees blacks take precedence over whites on the job market, giving some people little choice but to move into tents and caravans in camps such as this one.
Apartheid was a problem, but this is the only country in the world where the majority has got affirmative action. America's got affirmative action, everybody's got affirmative action, but this is the only country where the majority has got affirmative action.
Post-apartheid governments have struggled to achieve redistribution of wealth and economic growth, and formerly comfortable Afrikaners see themselves as victims of reverse apartheid.
According to statsa.gov.za, only 1.9 million out of a white population of 4.4 million is currently employed in South Africa. White monopoly capital. White monopoly capital is a South African phrase used in contemporary political discourse. The origin of the term, the exact meaning of the term, and even the existence of what the term is thought to mean is disputed. The term is thought to mean everything from an oligopoly owned by a super wealthy white elite that dominates large sectors of the economy, consisting of colluding monopolies to business groups that are critical of corruption and alleged state capture within the administration of the former South African President Jacob Zuma. Now that was according to Wikipedia. This is a term that is still in use and is being used to brainwash everybody in thinking that the whites are controlling all the wealth in South Africa. Please bear in mind, 1 million whites living in poverty, in squatters and in shanties, and then the 51% black ownership of all companies that's being enforced by the BEE policy.
We are going to occupy Absa, and we'll do it through our own terms. And we will not announce it like this. They will just wake up one morning, all branches of Absa everywhere else will be occupied by raid, because that will be a direct offensive against white monopoly capital. After Absa, it will be any industry owned by the Rupert and all the rich whites in South Africa, because we must direct our battle to white monopoly capital, which dominates the economy of South Africa, and it is stolen from the masses of our people.
The Bell Pottinger scandal. Bell Pottinger is a British public relations company that was hired by Zuma and the Guptas to create fake news like white monopoly capital, to divert the country's and the media's attention away from the corruption that was going on in the country. You can read up about it. It's all over Wikipedia, News24 and all those news sites. So let's talk about farm murders. Let me give you some figures on the South African murder rate. The international murder rate is 6 people for every 100,000. For South African citizens, 34 out of every 100,000. Now that's already significant. South African police officers, 37 out of every 100,000. South African farmers, 198 for every 100,000. Being a farmer in South Africa is the most dangerous job in the world. These farm murders are the most gruesome murders, where the victims are tortured for days or hours, women are raped in front of their husbands, babies put in ovens or boiling pots of water, people are hacked to death with machetes. I would love to show you pictures, but if I do, YouTube will make this video R-rated. Our president and political leaders are singing songs like Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer, or Mshiniwa, that translates to Bring Me My Machine Gun. Laura Southern did a documentary on this topic, and I will put a link to her in the description below.
Sofas, kichi, kichima, Zibram Kondo, Halaye, shoot to kill, Umasa, shoot to kill, Kilame, kiss the poor, the farmer, kiss the poor, the farmer, Burr, pa, pa, Burr, pa, pa, attention.
Genocide. According to Raphael Lemkin on the Wikipedia page, his definition of genocide is the following. By genocide, we mean the destruction of an ethnic group. Generally speaking, genocide does not necessarily mean the immediate destruction of a nation, except when accomplished by mass killings of all members of the nation. It is intended rather to signify a coordinated plan of different actions aiming at the destruction of essential foundations of the life of a national groups, within the aim of annihilation of the groups themselves. The objectives of such a plan would be disintegration of political and social institutions, of culture, language, national feelings, religion, and the economic existence of national groups, and of the destruction of the personal security, liberty, health, dignity, and even the lives of the individuals belonging to such a group. Disintegration of political and social institutions. State capture. Need I say more? The Zuma/Gupta state capture ensured this. The deliberate sabotage of government-owned enterprises so that the Gupta privately owned companies can get financial gain. The Guptas even appointed cabinet members, and this is also the reason Zuma got booted as president. South Africa will not be able to recover from this under the current ANC rule. Culture. Farming has always formed a deeply rooted part of white South Africans' culture. Farm murders has affected that drastically. And now, the new order of the day is expropriation of land without compensation. They want to take our farmlands. And by doing that, also our cultural heritage. They have even desecrated our statues. They are taking away everything we stand for.
Polisie is besig te omtrek. Stadig gaan seker die beurs hulle uit. En die ouens kom net af met die koppie.
Language. Afrikaans must fall. This is a campaign that is led by the black masses in schools and universities. They're doing everything in their power to get rid of our language and get it out of the schools and universities. Everybody has a right to get tuition in their own language. However, except if you're white. These schools have been standing for ages and has been Afrikaans schools for ages. They were let into the schools freely without any discrimination. However, now that they're in the school, they insist that our language is not part of the culture anymore and tuition is not allowed in Afrikaans anymore. National feelings. There is riots and protest by blacks daily in South Africa, and it has become a norm. However, if a white has a peaceful protest, they are racist. On 25th of November 2017, we had a march against farm murders in a town called Middelburg. While whites were peacefully protesting, a semi-truck smashed into the white protesters. We are too scared to raise our voices anymore.
Now, thousands of people participated in what organizers called Black Monday protests against farm killings. The public was encouraged to wear black to show solidarity against the rising number of farm attacks and violent crimes.
Meanwhile, the Gauteng Department of Education granted concessions for grade 12 pupils who arrived late for their exams due to those protests.
In Mpumalanga, the protest action left 3 people injured after a truck driver failed to stop, plowing into 13 vehicles on the N4 outside Middelburg.
Religion. White South Africans has always had a strong religious link to God. In fact, the first thing we did when landing in the Cape of Good Hopes in 1652 was give praise to God. In January 2017, a case was brought before the High Court of South Africa to ban Christianity from all schools. Economic existence. BEE or affirmative action. We have already discussed this topic, so I'm not going to go into much detail on it, and I'm not going to repeat myself. You already know that due to BEE and affirmative action, whites don't have economic existence anymore. Personal security. On the 3rd of April 2013, Mr. Dennis Webster was arrested for defending his family and himself against a violent armed robbery. This is only one example of many cases like this. Whites in South Africa have no personal security, and if you rely on the police, you would be lucky if they get there in time, or even get there at all. Liberty. After hearing everything that was discussed, does it sound like we have liberty? Do we have a right to live? Health. According to Times Live, KZN Health Department has violated human rights. Please feel free to go Google it and read up about it. A white patient was denied basic health care. This is something that happens daily. And if you watch Laura Southern's documentary, you'll see some more of it. Dignity. I don't even know if I want to discuss this. Does it sound like we have dignity? Would you have dignity if you live in a squatter? If a quarter of your whole white population is in poverty? And even lives. We have discussed farm murders already. And it is clear that it is more dangerous to be a white South African than a troop in Syria, Iraq or Afghanistan. So after hearing everything that was said, would you say there's a genocide going on in South Africa? Well, we've discussed all the topics that Mr. Lemkin's definition explains, and every one of those are being trespassed against whites in South Africa, well, then I would say yes, there is a genocide going on in South Africa. Slow war. According to the Urban Dictionary, this is a war that is only visible when the big pattern is revealed over time. If you could play the seemingly isolated events of a slow war in speeded up time, its real nature would be visible. We are at war in South Africa, and we have no way to defend ourselves. Help us and tell this to the world. Share this. You might be saving a life. Please like and subscribe this to get more news on South Africa.